Konnichiwa and welcome to the Jain Investigator. Japan is a land of vibrant culture, rich history, and dark secrets. From creepy creatures to vengeful spirits, Japanese urban legends are a source of fascination and often terrify those who seek them for generations. In this video, we'll take a deep dive into the bone-chilling world of Japanese urban legends, exploring the various spooky stories that have been passed down through the ages. Get ready to discover the eerie and the unknown. From the infamous slit-mouthed lady to the ghostly apparitions of the Yurei, we'll explore the most chilling and intriguing lore Japan has to offer. So join me on this journey into the heart of Japanese legends, and let's uncover the secrets that lie within. In Japan, the tradition of passing down these unique urban legends in the form of short stories can be tracked back to as early as the Edo period. It was during this time this tradition emerged as a popular form of entertainment and was popularized as a game named Hayaku Monogatari Kaidenkai, which roughly translates to 100 Tales of Horror. This is where people gathered in large groups and surrounded themselves with lighted candles, roughly 100 of them, and one by one proceeded to recollect chilling encounters with the supernatural or folk tales, where after the narrator had finished narrating his or her story, they would put out one of the candles in the room and the game continued until the last candle in the room was extinguished. This made the surroundings progressively darker and the setting became more eerie as time went on, and it often got so unnerving by the end of the game that people refrained from narrating the last story in the fear that they would be preyed upon by all those wandering spirits which they might have attracted during the course of the game. So, how about we do something like that here? Although I do not have 100 stories to tell you, but how about the more obscure ones which are not as mainstream as the more talked about ones here on YouTube, such as Kuchisake Onna or the Akamanto? Here are 10 uncommon yet creepy and potentially chilling Japanese urban legends. These are tree-shaped yokai which can be found near the edges of forests which are surrounded by those sites which previously were battlefields or sites of mass casualty. According to the legend, they started out as normal trees, but when the fields which they grew in witnessed the massacre of millions of lives, the trees transformed. The roots soaked in the blood of the dead, and soon the trees got addicted to the taste of human blood, thus transforming them into a yokai. Although from afar, they seem to look like regular trees, it takes a very keen eye to notice the more fearsome features of these trees, like their long jagged finger-like branches and the pile of skulls buried underneath its roots. When an unsuspecting passerby gets too close to the tree and passes underneath its branches, the tree immediately preys upon the person with its finger-like branches, hoisting them to its bough. Then the branch pierces into the skin of the victim, sucking out all their blood with its special tube-like twigs. After their body is drained, their flesh and organs are consumed by the birds, insects, and other animals. Only the dry bones fall back to the earth, and by the time most of the people are close enough to notice the heaps of the bleached bones at the base of the trees, it is too late to escape. This is another yokai in the shape of a formless spectre which follows people walking along dark alleyways or deserted roads. The name of this yokai comes from the onomatopoeia for the sound you make while walking. The legend suggests that the people who walk the streets alone at night encounter these harmless but nonetheless disturbing yokai. They synchronize their pace with the walkers and follow them as long as they can, getting closer and closer with every step. The haunting sounds of footsteps follow the victim wherever they go, but when they turn around, there is nothing there. Though beto-beto-sa can be disconcerting, they are not dangerous. Once you realize you are being followed by a beto-beto-sa, all you do to escape from this yokai is simply stepping to the side of the road and say, "After you, beto-beto-sa." The unsettling set of footsteps will then carry on ahead for a while and soon vanish from earshot, allowing you to continue treading along the path in peace. This is an occult ritual which was made popular on an internet forum named 2chan, which was a popular text board site in Japan in the early 2000s. This forum mentions it as Kaiji Answer, and the Answer Man is a more modern version of the same game. And to play this game, you would need about 10 players. Each would need to use their own cell phone to play the game, or burner phones can be used as well, considering what has to be done at the end of the ritual. To start the game, all the people who have gathered to perform the ritual have to form a circle and then give their cell phone numbers to the person on their left. Now, on the count of 3, all the participants at once call on the number given to them and hold their phones up to the ear. If everyone present there hears nothing but a busy signal, the ritual has failed and the group must try again. However, if one of the participants hears a voice from the other side of the phone and begins to talk, then the ritual has successfully begun. That person can now ask the answer man anything he wants to. Once they have received a reply, the answer man will now ask them a question. They must answer it as truthfully as possible. If unable to do so, they will feel a tingling sensation in one of their body parts, and then they are out to lose that part to a disease or an accident. If successful and satisfied with the number of questions they have asked, they must thank the answer man for his time and say, "I have to go now." The answer man might persuade the player to stay on the line in exchange for free information, but they must not comply with the offer as well, because if they do so, the answer man will then ask such a question which will be way harder to answer than the first one. The player will now have to pay the price by being dragged to hell by a ghoulish-looking hand which emerges from their cell phone. After successfully following the previous steps, they have to keep on persuading the answer man to let them leave until the answer man says goodbye to the player on their own accord. He or she can now disconnect the call, and all the other players, including the receiving player, will have to destroy the phones. They must do this ending step at any cost, because if the players are unable to do so, they might receive a call back. However, this time it may not be the answer man. This is a haunted tunnel located at Senju City in the Shibuya prefecture of Japan. This tunnel was originally being built during the first Tokyo Olympics, which was being held that year in 1964, and is directly built under a cemetery which is located on the hill right above the area in which this tunnel was being built. Originally, the builders of the tunnel were planning to bypass the cemetery, but the construction work had to be done in time for the prestigious event. Thus, the tunnel was forced to pass under the cemetery to reduce the delay which would be caused if the tunnel was required to be built somewhere else. If the project had gone ahead as planned, this place might not have become a haunted spot altogether. Currently, the tunnel has a lot of traffic since it connects the two busiest prefectures in Japan, them being Aoyama and Shinjuku, increasing the number of ghost sightings day by day. Many strange phenomena have occurred here. The people traveling through the tunnel have spotted that if you look up at the ceiling of the tunnel, you will see a female ghost hanging upside down looking at you with a vicious look on her face. Occasionally, you will see a woman covered in blood wandering around in the tunnel, and she will chase after you if you happen to be found by her. If you mistakenly begin doodling on the walls of the tunnel, you will see a ghost's face appear on the wall, and if you walk through the tunnel when there are no cars passing by, you will have a higher chance of encountering ghosts within minutes. Other sources say it is guaranteed that if you walk through the tunnel at midnight, you will experience some sort of supernatural phenomena. Since so many people have experienced such phenomena whenever they pass through this tunnel, it makes this place one of the most haunted spots in all of Tokyo. The Himuro Mansion, also known as the Himikyu Mansion, is often referred as to the real-life inspiration for the popular PlayStation 2 game named Fatal Frame. It is an urban legend which talks about a supposedly real mansion located somewhere in Tokyo during the Edo period, which was allegedly the site of one of the most gruesome murders in Japanese history. The decaying corpses of several people assumed to be the inhabitants were found murdered in the mansion, and it was alleged that the 7 murders took place as a part of an occult ritual which was performed by the family living in the mansion under the guidance of the patriarch of that family, as they believed that this would keep the evil at bay. Thus began the preparation of selecting the chosen one, who would typically be a girl child born into the family. She would be brought up in the household in such a way that she would have no connection to the world beyond the mapped boundaries of the mansion so as to eliminate any chances of the girl developing an emotional connection with someone from the outside world. Once the girl grew up to be of age, the real ritual began, where she would then be sacrificed to the supposed evil entity, where all her limbs would be tied with ropes, and these clusters would then be secured onto a bigger rope, which was then tied to the body of an oxen in such a way that a loose end was left hanging from the body of the animal. One of the members would then tug at this loose end, causing the string to tighten around the body of the animal, causing it to run, thus essentially severing the person tied to it in quarters during the process. This ritual continued in secrecy for about 80 years until one of the daughters managed to escape and meet a young man and fell in love with him later. This incident meant that she was no longer viable for participation, thus causing the family who was supposed to carry out this ritual to fail in performing their duty any longer, thus bringing dishonor to the family name. This caused the patriarch of the Himuro family to become so enraged that in a fit of rage he murdered each remaining family member by slashing them in half using a katana and then turned the blade to himself, feeling that such a death would be a better option for them than suffering their fates as the evil entity had now been let loose. Since then, numerous accounts of people noticing strange occurrences both in and around the house have emerged, where people passing by the mansion have heard strange sounds coming from inside the structure which resemble the slashing noises made by a katana, which is followed by the sudden appearance of blood splatters all over the walls of the mansion. A photograph taken of a particular window of the mansion reveals a ghostly apparition of that of a shadowy woman standing near the window, and probably the most terrifying incidents of them all, the dead bodies of the would-be explorers were allegedly found at the property with rope marks around their wrists and neck. Along with these significant ghost sightings and alleged murder victims being found at the mansion, there are many more disturbing rumors which float around with regards to the mansion till date. Have you ever dreamt of a village where you see yourself fall off a cliff and die? But there is a twist to the story. What if I tell you that if you fall down in the dream, you might die in real life? This is the main premise of a recurring dream a lot of people have reported to have dreamt in Japan at some point of their lifetime. Because of this dream was labeled to be a cursed one, and it's said that one who listens to this story that I'm about to narrate are guaranteed to have their dream that very night. So just for your own safety, you might want to skip to this timestamp right here, considering the nature of such dreams. Normally, people forget most of the dreams they have. So keeping that in mind, there are only a few people who remember what they actually saw in this dream. However, these very people have claimed that the dream they saw was so vivid that it felt real, and when they narrated that experience to others, many of them reported to have seen the same dream as them. According to people who remember what the dream looked like, they say it begins when you find yourself in a rural village where in the backdrop you see the sun setting, the sky painted with dusky colors. When you take a look around, all you see are bluish-purple dead bodies lying everywhere on the ground around you. After a while, you are approached by a few girls dressed in kimonos who explain you that you are in a village where, if you fall, you die. To your horror, as soon as the girls finish with their explanation, one of the girls in the group accidentally stumbles on one of the corpses lying around and falls right in front of your eyes. You stand there paralyzed with shock as you watch the girl turn bluish-purple as soon as she hits the ground. Although many people who have experienced this dream say that it always begins the same way, however, each of them have reported of witnessing a different ending to the same dream. Some people say they ran away immediately right after witnessing the event, all the while being frantically chased by the other girls in the group. Others say the girls gave them stilts to stand on, or they woke up immediately without nothing actually happening to them. But strangely enough, there are no reports of anyone who has actually fallen in the dream. It is believed that the people who have been found dead in their sleep are actually the ones who witnessed this dream and actually ended up tripping and falling to their death. Also known as the girl from the gaps, Tsukima Onna is an entity which haunts traditional Japanese homes. It's a yokai which looks like the apparition of a shadowy figure of a woman staring at you through the thin gaps between the walls and the furniture in your room, or through any crack which might be present on the walls of your house. This urban legend was popularized on 2chan, where an anonymous person posted an anecdote of the apparent sighting of this entity. The story he shared was about his friend who was a tea seller and currently working as a shopkeeper in a different town. He had recently moved into his new house which he had rented in the area. At first, everything was going fine, but one day he noticed that something was wrong with the sliding door on the second floor. Whenever somebody else tried to open it, it only opened halfway, but as soon as the shopkeeper tried to open the door, it slid open without any issue. Baffled at what he just experienced, the next day he asked the anon author of the original post to help him open the door, but to the man's surprise, the door wouldn't budge at all. This storekeeper and that friend then tried to open the door by force, only to be startled by a woman who suddenly appeared from the tight space and grabbed at the shopkeeper, who panicked and forced the door back into the gap, only for the woman to vanish into thin air. This post sent ripples across the forum, leading to the birth of this urban legend. As the legend suggests, the entity is quite harmless, as all she does is gaze at you through a gap. But things take a turn when you accidentally lock eyes with her. That's when you'll begin to see her everywhere. She won't ever stop looking at you from that point on. You will have this feeling that you are being stared at, only to look around and see Tsukima Onna staring at you through the most immeasurably small gap present anywhere on the wall. Her piercing gaze is so unsettling that it is enough to drive someone crazy, and no matter how hard you try to block her out of sight, she will still be watching with her eyes all on you forever and ever. This incident was documented in real time on the 2chan message board back in 2004 under a thread titled "Post Strange Occurrences That Have Happened to You." In that thread, a poster who went by Hasumi details how she's riding a train at night, but there was a miss. Although it was the same train she took every day to reach back home, something kept on bothering her about the train ever since she decided to board it. The train, which usually halted at a stop every 5 minutes, hadn't seemed to have taken a halt at any of the stations which they passed by for the last 20 minutes. Over time, she realizes how the train hasn't stopped for about an hour or so, when the train suddenly stopped at a station and the board displays its name as the Kisaragi station. Hasumi, now unable to recognize the station as she has never heard of it before, begins to reach out to people on 2chan regarding the exact location of the station on the map, leading to her making the post on the message board in real time. But to her surprise, nobody on 2chan could find any information regarding this deserted mystery station as well. Out of desperation, Hasumi now begins to contact her family and the police as well, but to no avail, as neither of the two knew which exact part of the town this station was located at. From then on, weird things begin to happen with Hasumi. She writes how she all of a sudden saw an apparition which yelled at her and then vanished into thin air. She also reports hearing sounds of beating drums which seem to get closer as time passes. After considering some advice from the forum regarding what has to be done next, she begins to move towards the train tracks which would lead her back to the previous station. And after a while, she writes back on the forum that she has come across this friendly-looking man who offers her help to take her to the train via which she could return back home. Though a lot of people on the forum advised her not to follow the man, she still decides to go along and boarded the supposed train with him. At first, everything seemed well for Hasumi, but sooner or later things started to take a turn when she was met with this feeling of unease as the train began to take the route which took the train up the hillside and then into the mountains nearby. And strangely enough, the stranger who was so friendly with her a few minutes ago now sat there silently without speaking a word. With her phone battery now running low, Hasumi decides to take a run for her life and sends a signing off message in the forum, but following this incident, she was never seen posting or contacting anybody back on the thread ever again. Also known as the 8 feet tall lady, the Hachisaku-sama is a Japanese yokai that takes the form of an extremely tall female spectre often said to have a deep masculine or an attractive feminine voice, using which she lures and kidnaps her main victims, that being children, usually ones who are within the age range of 9 to 11 years old, all the while repeating the vowel po over and over again. This yokai often appears as an 8-foot tall woman with long and shiny black hair. She is usually depicted to be dressed in all white, along with which she also wears a white hat, sometimes also appearing with shoes such as sandals, white or black high heels, or sometimes she even goes around barefoot in a few depictions. Most depictions describe her as a very beautiful and attractive woman, which most likely is a visual tool to further increase the strength of her manipulative nature and charisma, while some depictions describe her to have extremely soulless eyes along with a twisted, creepy smile adorning her face. This yokai in particular is said to have shape-shifting abilities to disguise herself in public or even trick her victims into thinking she is one of her relatives. If the Hichisaku-sama takes a liking for a certain child, she begins to stalk the kid for a few days or for a few months, after which, in some accounts, she appears in front of them and takes the child away from its family, or in a few others, the child is then destined to die within a few days after the Hichisaku-sama has appeared before them. The only way to escape from the clutches of the Hichisaku-sama is by praying her spirit away and then quickly finding a shrine where you can request the help of a priest. It is even recommended to leave Japan altogether, as she herself cannot leave Japan, and also because once she has set her eyes upon a kid, she will not leave unless and until she has taken away its soul, even if it means that she has to wait for a decade to do so. Hence, if you were to return to Japan after you have become an adult, she would still be able to find you and snatch your soul away from you whenever given the chance to. The final entry in this list is more of an internet mystery, but can totally be categorized as a modern urban legend. This entry refers to a popular creepypasta which narrates the story of a mysterious late-night television broadcast which appeared on the Nippon News Network during the off-air hours in the late 90s. The legend says that viewers who were watching TV and had this channel playing on that specific moment were met with a peculiar sight on the television screens. Their screens began to play a video where a color bar test pattern appears, followed by a few shots of a trash processing plant, after which they see a list of names rolling on the screen, which is accompanied by the sound of an expressionless voice reading the names out while somber classical music plays in the background. The broadcast is then abruptly cut short with an announcement that flashes on the screen which reads, "These are the names of tomorrow's victims." It is believed to either simply be the result of a broadcast signal intrusion, which was either a disturbing joke or deathly serious and sinister, or that it was actually a broadcast which displayed the names of those people who were waiting for their imminent death the very next day. There exists a variation of this legend which includes one of the viewers of the broadcast discovering their own name in the list indicating his impending death. A supposed recreation of the actual footage of the broadcast was uploaded to YouTube on August 2nd, 2007 by a channel named Dark Y Night D, referencing everything that was included in the legend. It is also well known for briefly including the Jeff the Killer image, which is a popular and famous creepypasta on the internet. It did reignite the search for the original Jeff the Killer image. The video accurately follows the story describing the legend and even throws in a few spooky images and sounds. To this day, the video has claimed over 2.2 million views. Here is a short snippet of that video.